So it's now time for me to bring up somebody who knows far more than me, Kenneth Macpherson. Kenneth? There we go. Am I just going straight to bring Kenneth up? Yep. Excellent. Kenneth, welcome up to the stage. Take a seat. Kenneth, please take a seat. So I'm sure you all know Kenneth, but just in the event you don't, he is the CEO for AHIC, heading up the region across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia, which I think is pretty much the world. It's about 70 countries, is that right?
Slightly more, but yes.
Okay. And about 1,100 hotels.
Yeah.
So Kenneth, thank you very much for joining us. I know before this role you headed up China for AHIC, and so you've seen a huge amount of change, and you've been in markets that have grown like China has, like the Middle East has grown, and you've obviously you've been through everything that I presented on the last slide there. And today we thought there's so much we could cover. More than we could cover in 15 minutes, and we really wanted to focus on 3 areas. So, firstly, is it still worthwhile investing in hotels, and what do you think of the sort of what I've set out there? Secondly, what have we learnt about operating hotels over the last 18 months? And thirdly, ESG. But before we do that, we need to ask some very important questions. So, Kenneth, to help us understand you a bit better. So, answers to the following. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee?
Coffee.
I am in shock. I thought it was going to be tea.
Oh, well, tea in the afternoon. Generally coffee.
I thought it was going to be tea, and then I was going to ask you what tea, and I was going to be certain that it was English tea.
Oh, no, it's coffee.
Coffee?
Oh, yes.
Excellent. Mountains or beach?
And that one's mountains.
Mountains,
Robin. Any opportunity to get into the great outdoors and explore. Very, very happy doing that.
Excellent. And then the most important question, rock star or author?
Now the embarrassing answer to that one is actually rock star.
I knew that.
Although I had a great ambition to be one, and actually did do a demo tape in a band that I played in, none of the record companies signed us up. So hence I ended up doing this. But yeah, deep down in me, there is a rock star.
There you go. See, this is the great thing about the internet. I went back and looked at some podcasts and found that out, and so there you go. I didn't manage to find the demo tape, because if I had, I think we would have had a clip up here right now.
No, the demo tape is very, very clearly buried somewhere at home. But it's there. It's the 8-reel tape.
Excellent. So, I guess, Kenneth, going on to that first topic then, investing in hotels after the ringer that we've been through for the last 2 years, is it still worthwhile?
Yes, it is. I mean, Robert, I'm sure for many of us here, I was delighted to see your final conclusion. But no, I firmly believe that the hotel industry is still a good investment. You talked about some of the recovery numbers in your presentation. If you take our business, in July we had 50% of our hotels globally were above 2019 RevPAR levels. And you can see, as you talked about, there's a range in markets, but there's such a significant revenue recovery coming from vaccination and then regulations starting to free up and travel and hospitality coming back. So I'm sort of more confident on the revenue side of things. I think you cover that very clearly.
And so the leisure pent-up demand is, I think everybody's seen that, and it's very visible. The one stat that amazed me last year was just seeing Dubai occupancies go up to pretty much 2019 levels within 2 weeks over December when things opened up, right? But what about, Sammy was, I would say, not bullish on business travel, as an understatement. How about yourself? Do you think business travel, will come back?
Yeah, well, firstly, just on the leisure bit, just to say how much I agree with you. I mean, we did some surveys as well, and 1 in 5 people that we surveyed said that they want to catch up travel that they've missed. We know that the 18 to 24-year-olds are saying they want to get something on their bucket list in this year, so there's this absolute pent-up demand. I think that the sort of headlines of the end of business travel are really exaggerated. I don't think that's the case. I think it is true that we have learnt to do short meetings over any one of the various video conferencing systems that are out there. But that really isn't it. And I'm just looking out of this room. You can see the presence of everyone here, and it's fantastic to see everybody. But that just sort of says how important it is to be together. And there are aspects of business where relationship building is important, and I've found it hard to do that over video. I'm sure many of the people here today have found it hard to do that. So I think that aspects of business that are needed. Earlier on, we heard as well that travel will shift slightly. So maybe the short trips, less. But going on business, I think there will be this blending of business and leisure. And I also believe that we'll have companies who will maybe have more people working from home, maybe doing more by video. But there will be a point when that realization of needing to get people together is going to happen, and we will see new types of events coming through. We're going to see different ways of bringing the business community together happening. So I think there'll be shifts. I think it's on all of us to tap into that, to understand what's happening, to stay ahead of it. But by no means do I think it's finished. I think we've got a lot of business travel ahead of us all.
Well, I think for me, the good news is I don't think we'll have to wait too long to find out exactly that, because, I mean, just in Europe, we've started going back to the office now, and it's amazing how within 1 or 2 weeks it starts to feel normal. And I think by Q1 next year, we'll have a pretty good idea in the data, the extent to which things are recovering. So that's...
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's on us as an industry to make sure that we've got everything in place as well to give that comfort. I mean, we heard in your presentation, companies looking at budgets. They're also going to be looking at safety and comfort. So, it's really important that we continue to just offer that degree of comfort, that we've got the care processes in place. We do that with the IHG way of clean, but as an industry, we need to do that. And we need to make sure that we've got that sort of booking confidence in place as well to just help the business travel return, to understand some of the concerns that are there. But I think we're very much on top of that, and we're working closely on that.
Okay. So maybe last couple of things on why invest in hotels. You saw the sort of the slides I had there on how many hotels had reopened, and that we still expect new hotels to open up. Is that consistent with what you're seeing? And how much of a risk is oversupply, you think, going forward? We know it's been a challenge in this region in the past.
Yeah, so look, we have a strong pipeline. That pipeline's going to open. I know the industry's got that. You showed that. I expect that to continue. There may be a little bit of timing change. But if we look at the region here, I think we have to have a degree of confidence in the demand. So we're not sat in a static environment. We've got the plans laid out for Dubai's urban development, and the demand that's going to drive, and particularly the investment into tourism, hospitality, other infrastructure. In the region, we've seen the Saudi 2030 plan, and all of the investment there going into events, into creating an entire sort of hospitality driver there. We're seeing that in other parts of the region as well. So I think, yes, there will be investment in demand. I believe that's going to carry on. I think that will create demand. And I think that will actually continue to support the opening of the hotels in the pipeline already, but actually identification of new opportunities and continuing to build more. So I think it's going to carry on. It's not over.
Yeah, I think that's where you'll never be able to look at a model that'll show you that it'll be okay, and where you really have to rely on the vision. I remember coming here in the early 2000s for the first time, and the classic line was "Build it and they will come," and I'm just too skeptical to believe in that. And so I had a high degree of skepticism, but that is what has happened, because it's not just about building the supply, it's about all the demand drivers, and you certainly see that across the region.
And I saw this when you mentioned, I sort of ran IHG's Greater China business. I was in Shanghai for 5 years doing that. And there was an enormous level of urban expansion, and for sure you would see times when demand and supply were out of sync. But a couple of things happen is that firstly, capital is really intelligent and actually adjusts to make sure that the assets that open are viable. And then also actually you sort of saw the role of government as well about making sure that the planning that was granted sort of also made sense. So I think the collaboration that's there around identifying opportunities, financing opportunities, it really does create quite a positive balance. So, and I do think with the demand drivers, with that alongside it, that the environment is good, and certainly we're very optimistic about about the business in the region here.
Excellent, excellent. So let's go on to operations. I mean, what are the biggest things you've learned over the last 18 months? What has COVID changed in terms of operating hotels?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, what an 18 months. And I think the first bit is of course, this industry's about care, and we've all learnt again something we know for sure, that the first thing we have to do is to protect the safety of our guests and, of course, the safety of our teams. So the work that we've had to do around COVID safety, clear thing, and we rolled that one out globally, got it in place into the hotels and did that. Again, the importance of talent. And now it's been such a tough time. I think many of us, if not all of us in the room, have been exposed to very tough challenges and decisions that needed to be taken. Again, what we've tried to do through that, Robin, is to, even when we had to take some decisions about reducing the teams that we've got, to do that with great care, to care for the physical well-being, the mental well-being. If repatriation was needed, to do that with great care and great skill, and then also actually to sort of provide support for the wonderful colleagues in the hotels. The purpose of doing all of that way, of course, that now with recovery, you've actually got talent that wants to come back into IHG's hotels and is able to be part of this incredible recovery that you talked about. So there's the talent piece, and we're doing a lot now to help on that talent acquisition. We provided even more support than before about attracting, bringing in, training, retaining, and doing that. Clearly, you talked about margins and GOP positions. So, look, as a hotel branded company, we've got to stay focused on that guest experience, and we need to be doing that. We've got to bring back standards. For example, the pace of bringing breakfast back in some markets. But through all of this, we've had to work with our owners, and we continue to work with our owners about profitability, about making sure that everything that we're doing around people, around energy, around efficiency, the operating model, that's as good as it can be. So, brand, people, economic performance of the hotels, fundamentals, I guess, of the business.
Just doing a good job running the hotels.
Yeah, fundamentals of the business, and COVID's told us that is just absolutely stay focused on brilliant basics through very challenging times.
Let's talk about the talent piece quickly before we go into ESG. And certainly anywhere you look in operations across Europe, across the US, the shortage of labor is a huge issue at the moment. I mean, I went into top-end luxury hotel in London a couple of weeks ago and had to spend 4 minutes hunting for somebody to find a table to sit us down. Then took another 20 minutes to take a drink order. It was chaotic for what that brand should be. I contrast that to breakfast this morning at a mid-scale hotel in Dubai, where when I asked where the toast was, the person actually went round and took me and made the toast for me, which, if you did that in Europe, you would basically be told to get out. But tell me, talent for the Middle East, is it as much an issue as it is for Europe?
Not in the same way that it is in Europe, and of course you're based in the UK, where I think it's been particularly pronounced. Here, because of the nature of the industry, clearly there's a very important Emirati talent role that needs to be played, and we're playing our part in that and collaborating on that. But with actually being so much foreign labor that comes in, it's been much more about the logistics of that, and it's about bringing people in, and it's about, again, the importance of training, of developing, of explaining the brand standards to make sure that guest experience is right. Bit different to some of the markets, Robin, would say where there actually just is physically less accessible supply of labour, and that's an industry challenge, and we all do our best on that one.
Excellent. So let's go into ESG and we really don't have enough time to cover everything that is on this topic. A year ago, a lot of people didn't even know what ESG was. What's ESG for IHG, other than an acronym with the same number of letters? And sort of linked to that question, clearly it's everybody's responsibilities, but how are you approaching it with owners and employees and guests?
Well, maybe just give you sort of two examples. I mean, in recently we've launched two new brands. We have a brand called Voco, and we just announced a brand called the Vignette Collection, one which is a luxury and one is a sort of upscale brand. Both of those brands have got sustainability as a hallmark of them. Now, as a business overall, across all of our brands, all 17 of them, sustainability is there. We've got science-based target commitments. We made public commitments to 2030 for people, for the communities that we operate in, for the planet. For me, this is the ESG agenda. It's about the obligation that we've got on this important topic. I think it's the right thing to do. But for anyone who's investing in the hotel assets, I think it just makes good capital sense. If we look at what's happening now with financing, if we look at what's happening around valuations of assets, it's important, that there's a strong ESG credential. The carbon footprint, for example, absolutely key. So, so therefore we have a program that runs across all of our hotels worldwide. That's providing called green solutions that can be measured and implemented. We've got programs on waste, we've got programs on water, we've got programs on community involvement and support. And these things now are just, I think, what we all need to be doing. My plea to all of us would be, I don't think any one person in this room can do it themselves. These are incredibly important topics. We need to be collaborating on it. We need to be sharing how we think we can move the agenda forward. And doing that between operators, asset owners, any representatives here from governments as well. This is something for us to all embrace together and what we can do forward. But for us, it's core to IHG. It's core to the way we run our business. It's core to the brands that our guests can enjoy.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. I think for the one thing we need to realize as an industry, and particularly for people that own hotels, is whether we like it or not, out of all the industries out there, we're probably, over the long term, most impacted by it. Because we don't sell widgets, right? You have a huge building. And once you've built that building, you can't really move it, and you can't really change it. And you have to have that building and operate in a way that makes sense, not just now, but 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, and 30 years from now. Because if you don't, it's not going to be worth the investment then when you try and get out of it. So if you try. So I think it's one that we have to be very proactive about.
I completely agree. And we are.
So I think we're out of time, Kenneth. It's been awesome covering those topics. But sort of stepping back from the business side and sort of going back to tea and coffee, if you could go back to yourself, your younger self, before sort of in commencing your career, if you had to give them one bit of advice now based on everything that you've learned, other than you should have been a rock star, or maybe it's that, what would you say? What would you say to yourself?
No, would it have been cut to the second demo tape? I don't know. You talked about the chance to reflect through the last 18 months. I think more than ever, I would advise that there are very important things in your life, and just make sure that each of them is given enough space. And I think that's something that maybe as you get a little bit older and you see something like this, really sort of reminds me of just that importance, mate, for family, for friends, for health, for, of course, work and what we do.
Balance.
Yeah, really important. Balance.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kenneth.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.